Hey, what's going on? We got a special guest here today on the Clockedin podcast. We have Matt McLean. He's a fourth generation citrus grower launching Uncle Matt's Organic in 1999. Matt's goal, and still is to produce the highest quality juice using only premium 100% organically grown fruit that is free from synthetic fertilizers and pesticides. Matt, we're so excited to have you on the Clockedin podcast. The first question is, why would you get into the orange juice business?
Great question. Hey, and thank you so much, Jordan, for having me on today. I appreciate it. I'm equally as excited to talk to you and your listeners. Why get in the orange juice business? Well, first off, it was in my blood, right? I'm fourth generation Florida citrus grower. So it started right there in my blood. And then when I had the right opportunity, like every entrepreneur, you end up having your aha moment where you think, geez, could this be a real business and a business idea? And then you get excited because you think, you look at the market and go, no, it's that idea has not already been done. And at the time I started 25 years ago, when I looked at it like 28 years ago, it took me a couple of years before it came to fruition. There was no organic Tropicana or organic Simply or Florida's Natural in the market. So that was a clear direction for me. There was a business opportunity. I thought for sure that it would be something great. And then, I didn't necessarily know 25 years I'd still be doing it. But it's awesome because I obviously chose the right path way back then. But that's why I got into the organic orange juice market. It was in my blood, but then I saw an awesome opportunity that was not in the marketplace.
Absolutely. And for you, Matt, how was it growing up a citrus farmer? Were your parents kind of pushing it on you? Was your family pushing, just keep doing your thing? We don't do anything
Yeah.
else.
Yeah. So yeah, I have a great family, and I could have been anything I wanted to be. They would encourage me to do that. And, growing up though, obviously my dad and grandfather, they were deeply involved in citrus. They were citrus growers and then later became citrus consultants when they had the freezes in the 80s, 83, 85, and 89. It killed and wiped out all of their groves. They had 600
What
acres that
and
they
what
owned.
happened? What happened during it might be common to you.
Yeah.
What's the
No,
citrus
so it got down to literally 19 degrees, and in
in
Florida that
Florida?
doesn't work very well. It's
Oh, during the
way
farming.
below freezing, and so literally Christmas Eve 1983, it got down to that, and you could hear the sap burst in the tree, and it sounded like a gunshot going off out in the groves periodically. So it killed over 300,000 acres of bearing
Goodness.
citrus in 7 different counties up here around Central Florida.
Wow.
So 600 acres of that was my dad and granddad's. And they, unfortunately, from there became citrus consultants instead of citrus growers. They had to sell off the land. And my grandfather moved south about 2 hours down to Lake Placid. And my family stayed in the Claremont area, which is just west of Orlando. But, so I could have stayed in citrus. I could have gone to the University of Florida and got an ag degree. Instead, I got into business. I felt after the long hot summers of working in the groves, it's pretty tough manual labor. I learned a lot of great lessons being out there, the value of hard work and leading other young men as the guy out there in charge. But I just thought there was something else beyond
Yes.
ag. And while I love the upbringing, I like the business aspect of it. And so I went to college to get out of agriculture and to get into the business side. And my family was fine. My dad was fine with it. But I tell you, when I got out and I had the opportunity and got back into working in the citrus industry while I wasn't a grower, I was on the other side. I was selling juice
Yeah.
and to Europe and the Middle East. I started an import export business. Uh,
Yes.
and I met one of my father's consulting clients who was a German fella, and he knew a lot of bottlers in Germany. And so I went along all of the processors in Florida, and I helped buy the orange juice and grapefruit juice, and we shipped it over to Germany, and he sold it to the different bottlers. So I found a way in the citrus industry that I love and have passion for. I just didn't really want to be in the ag side, but I found a way to
Yeah.
still be in it and be on the business side, which was great,
That's
which was doing the juice and the import export. And so that was a lot of fun. And I think it was just one of those perfect scenarios that you could imagine when you get out of college and links you back to your family, but still not really what you wanted to do, but something better.
Absolutely. And it's pretty interesting. I've been reading the book, The E-Myth, and they
Mm.
basically talk about the technician and then the entrepreneur. So the
Huh.
technician is the person who does the work consistently, like the agriculture person. And
Yep.
then the entrepreneur is the person who kind of brings all the ideas together, kind of sees the different vision. It can
Hmm.
still be responsible, but they're all different. It gives them the framework that everything's just a fiddle. Like everything can
Yeah.
be adjusted and everything can
Sure.
be utilized. So I share this just because it's interesting for the audience to realize that even if you think you're very good at something, but you
Mhm.
really enjoy the business side of it, you can still be involved in that, but you don't
Sure.
have to do it on the day to day, but you're still
Right.
part of that community.
Correct. Yeah. So
Absolutely.
it worked out well for me. And to be honest, when I came back and started the import export business, my family was thrilled because it was, just a different part of the industry that they had never been a part of. They'd never been on the sales side of selling the end product. They'd mostly just been growing it. So that immediately gave us another, expertise within the family. And then when I started Uncle Matt's and had an actual brand, that was kind of the pinnacle. Wow, now we can reach all the way through to the end user, the end consumer. My grandfather was so excited and thrilled after, all of his life work being mostly a farmer or a consultant, and always just selling to whatever processor or packing house that would come and buy his fruit. He never had the chance to actually reach all the way to the end consumer. And so Uncle Matt's gave us that chance and to get the feedback and to have the one-on-one relationship. So his life was complete, like a checkbox, that was,
And,
yeah.
and that's fascinating because you don't
Mhm.
think about it, but like most people are like, I want my business to work and I want to make money. But you don't
Yep.
think about it as a manufacturer, you don't get that joy of having the end consumer see your product and being like, I really enjoy this. I drink this every morning. I keep
Right.
this optimal. So what caused you to name it Uncle Matt's, by the way, too?
Yeah. So I have a sister-in-law. I had thought of all kinds of generic dumb names. Healthy Farms literally was the top of my list that generically I came up with, and I knew it wasn't good. But my sister-in-law came to her in a dream. She's a spiritual person and said, "Hey, I honestly tell you, this may kind of freak you out, but uh, God, I had a feeling that God said to call it Uncle Matt's." I'm like,
Really?
well, that's divine intervention. I don't know if I can disagree with that. She goes, because it's about the next generation and farming organic, and I said, yeah, that's perfect. Actually, the more I thought about it, it was had I didn't really want to be the spokesperson of the company for the rest of my life. I'm perfectly fine being, the hard worker behind a name. Um, but it made real sense because at that time I had one niece and one nephew. Today I have 10. And I did really care about them. And I thought, yeah, organic farming is about protecting the environment. It's farming better for future generations, leaving the earth in a better spot than what it was before. So it really came together full circle for me. And from there on, I became the Ronald McDonald of Uncle Matt's.
Absolutely. And how has organic changed throughout the years? Because
Mhm.
I feel like when you're doing it in 1999, that's kind of a unique area. Like now it's everything. Is it organic?
Yes,
Is it not? Like now it's so
right,
prevalent. Did you have battles
right.
with that? Like, because obviously it costs more money. It's not as easy. It's not
Yeah.
as easy to get the products. Like,
Yeah, so I started before there was actually the USDA organic seal. So prior to 2002,
yeah.
the USDA had not come in and actually made a full standard. We said we were certified organic by the California Foods Production Act of 1990. So we had an independent certifier body in Gainesville, Florida Organic Growers, and they came in and they certified us organic to that standard of the California Foods Production Act of 1990. That was the basis of the law that eventually went into effect by the USDA in 2002. And now you'll see the USDA organic seal everywhere.
Of
But in the
course.
beginning, very few people really knew about it. And, we would get made fun of it. This is hippie food, right? But the hippies it kind of was a hippie movement in the beginning
Yeah.
about farming, the way Mother Nature intended. And then it just became over time more and more relevant, more and more obvious, and more about the health of the soil, the health of the tree, and
Yeah.
holistically managing it the way Mother Nature intended, and to where we are today, where it's prevalent throughout the whole grocery store. I mean, every single category has some kind of organic seal on, a ketchup or a tomato or yogurt, milk, all of those things. It's now prevalent throughout, which is pretty awesome because I remember in 1999, thinking, gosh, when you walk into the supermarket, there's not a whole lot of organic, but the organic baby food aisle was really doing well, and organic baby food had caught on. And I put that in all of my presentations in the beginning. I put the little graph of how fast the organic baby food market was growing, and I said, listen, if mom is buying it, it's going to eventually trickle to a lot of other things in the supermarket, because if she'll buy baby food, then she'll also buy everything else that kid is going to want and need in its lifetime. And so sure enough, look at the rest of the grocery store, everything started having a small percentage of what they offered would be organic. And so, orange juice made sense to the buyers who listened, like, yeah, okay, we'll give you a shot and put you in. Why it didn't move crazy amount of volume in the beginning, it kept growing and it kept growing and it kept growing and it kept growing. And then they'd give me one more facing, one more item. And before you know it, hey, we're a real brand. And here we are 25 years later, and we'll have, 6, 8, 10 items on the shelf. We sell more Uncle Matt's and accounts like Whole Foods and Sprouts than Tropicana and Simply. And Florida's
Wow. No,
natural. So
and
we're
that
selling more than them, and we're outgrowing and outpacing the category for the last 10 years. We've been the thing that's provided growth. So it's pretty amazing.
absolutely 100%. And just to explain to everyone, what is the major difference between organic, like in regard to the farms, in regard to
Sure.
the juice? Like, can you just elaborate on that a little bit? Because I'm
Yeah,
not the most.
for layman's terms, really, it's farming without synthetic pesticides or fertilizers, right? So farming more the way Mother Nature intended. So compost tea, fish emulsion. Um, we'll use natural botanicals to deter pests. We'll use like neem oil. So instead of stuff with skull and the crossbones on the label that you would put out on into Mother Earth, we won't use that, right? We'll use things that they used before World War II when they came home, and instead of making bombs, they then made pesticides out of a lot of the same material. And it's true, it's what happened. And so before my grandfather passed away, he was so excited about us farming organic and getting into farming organic because he saw it in his lifetime. He saw farming prior to World War II without pesticides. And when I first came to him with the idea of can we farm organic in Florida, he laughed and was offended and said, I was alive, man. Of course we can. Before pesticides were invented, we planted cover crops. We put hairy indigo down and it grew our own nitrogen. Then we would disc it back into the ground and it would build organic matter, hold more moisture, and we'd get a lot of composted chicken manure, and we'd use that for fertilizer. And we did, those kind of things and those practices, and the groves thrived. And
Wow.
we didn't stop using those methods because they were disproven. They were just displaced by new technologies that came in with synthetic fertilizers and pesticides. And in his
But
lifetime, he saw from the beginning to the end, and he died when he was, I think, 81, 82, that at the end, and when he and I were interacting, it was, hey, we have become an industry in agriculture where it's a lot more single factor analysis. You have
yeah.
a pest, you get a pesticide to kill it. You have a fungus, you get a fungicide to kill it, instead of holistically trying to come up with preventative maintenance, right, around building the healthy soil
Yes.
so the tree can defend itself naturally. It doesn't attract the pest because it's too vigorous. It does more on its own. You stimulate its own immune system, etc. So that's what he was so excited about. That his lasting legacy was fighting to try to get back to more holistic farming, and the conventional method was taking us further and further away
Because,
from it.
because the other side of it, it's more profitable now because it's
Yeah,
easier, less work, less
yeah. I
labor,
mean,
not as complex.
the conventional ag model is more about production,
Of
right,
course.
than necessarily quality. And when
Yes.
you look at organic, while not all the crops will get the same production as your synthetic counterparts, we want more quality, right? We want
Yes.
better, higher nutrient density inside of it, more antioxidants, vitamin C, and some of those things. When a tree grows slower, it grows more with a healthy soil. you're going to get more nutrients
Better
inside
results.
that fruit and better results. And a lot of
Interesting.
it's flavor, which is the end consumer gets and goes, "Ooh, that was really good."
Because it's different. Yeah, it becomes very interesting. And now
Yeah,
I feel like you guys are perfectly primed for this because now the organic wave is strong,
it
especially with
is.
like a Whole Foods and a Sprouts and
Yeah.
like even the normal food stores are still trying to give organic sections because they're like
Yep.
they
Yeah.
don't care. Because people are viewing the health as a longevity game and they're
Correct.
willing to
And
spend more.
definitely post COVID,
Of course.
more people are looking at ingredients. More people are trying to come up with, how do I keep myself healthy, right? And
Yeah.
not have to go to the doctor. And if the next, pandemic comes through, I want to have a natural immune system that's ready to help and fight off that disease. And so, how do you get there? You are what you eat. Health is wealth, food is medicine. Those are kind of key components, and they were always rooted in that organic movement
Yes.
because we were looking for the most nutrient dense, the healthiest, whatever you're going to grow, and that's what organic farming is about.
Absolutely. And for people who are for your business, wha-
Mhm.
did you guys end up having some success with this? Because I mean, obviously you're around 25 years later, but
Yeah.
did any of the big guys ever try to take you guys like buy you guys out? How did that go?
So we did as a family. We started in 1999. I was myself, and I got a loan from my mom for 20, I think 20 grand. Eventually
Yeah.
paid her all back. But I was by 2002, I realized, hey, this Uncle Matt's thing, I need to do more on the growing side. I can't just go out to a couple organic growers in Florida and buy their fruit and buy their juice. We need to start doing it ourselves. And so we
Yeah.
formed a whole nother company, Uncle Matt's Fresh, and I brought in more family members, my dad and brother in particular. They were the agronomist. And so we then rapidly began transitioning groves to organic. It takes 3 years from the last prohibited substance. And so we had to play the long-term game. We'd go out and say, hey, let's turn it organic. We'll help you with the farm plan. We'll tell you, what to fertilize with, what kind of, organic sprays you're allowed to use. We'll help you with certification. And oh, by the way, we'll buy it all because we need it. And so we did that very aggressively from 2002 until 2015. And
Oh
we
wow.
had all of our own groves for Uncle Matt's. We supplied. We were the largest organic fresh fruit shipper on the East Coast. So
Were
oranges,
you
grapefruits,
were you shipping
tangerines.
just for yourself or you were shipping
Yes.
to other people as well?
No. So we were shipping to Publix and Whole Foods and
No,
Kroger and
but
all of
I
this.
mean, like obviously your father and brother started making this.
Yes. So
Do
they
but you
started
guys were able
growing.
to supply the demand. You guys had the
Correct.
demand with Uncle Matt's. Okay,
Correct.
gotcha.
So I was growing the demand, and they were literally growing the supply. So we went from 3 acres in my dad's backyard to at the end at our peak we had 1,500 acres.
Oh
We had
wow.
over we had over 35 different growers that we had converted over the years, and we took care of all of it ourselves. We had a separate caretaking company with 20 different people, 5 different tractors and all kinds of equipment to take care of them all throughout the state, up and down the state of Florida. And then this little citrus greening bug shows up and started killing everything. And it's a
No
disease
way.
that affects the industry. It's a bacterial disease. It doesn't affect humans, but it affects the citrus tree. And conventional organic, nobody has cured it to date. And so our business model has dramatically changed since then. What we have left of the 1,500 acres is about 70 that's only for research and development to try and find a cure for greening. So we've had to pivot. We now work with other growers in other
And
locations around the world that
and
are greening free.
what were you going through when you were thinking about that? Because the reason
Yeah,
I say this is because I think it's so important for businesses to share learnings and challenges. Because we all
yeah,
want to sit there and go, "Oh, it must be so easy for him. He's got all these deals, all these things." But
my
like, no,
Lord.
there's real challenges. So like when your supplier goes, "Hey, we can't do this," and it's because of a little bug that starts infect, you're
Yeah.
like, "Oh my God!" Like that's almost as bad as COVID. And you're like, "What?" Like,
Yeah, so it was huge, and we had to dramatically change and pivot. I had a lot of friends over the years that I developed in both Texas, California, and Mexico. because we were growing the same time they were growing organic, and they would ask. We were friendly competitors, but when 2015 hit, we then started pivoting and said, "Hey, we're not going to have the supply that we had on these groves. The production's going down. If we don't find a cure, we're going to be finished." And
Yeah.
so what ended up happening is we started sourcing from those other locations,
Oh
and
wow.
we turned those friendships into now business partnerships, and began working with them to not only help tell them about citrus screening and how to avoid it in the future, how to identify it, what things you could try and do to avoid it, and then we had just good long-term business relationships working with them about growing quality supply for us. And so that was quite the ordeal. But back to some of the hurdles, 2002, we got all the way to 2012, and we didn't take any money. It was still just a family business. We combined the fresh fruit company and the juice company in 2009. And then 2012, we realized, like, hey, we need to raise some money. We need some
Yeah.
more advice. We need more professional help on how to really take this brand to the next level. And so we brought in a private equity group out of Colorado, and they were wonderful.
How was that? How was that experience? Because I know
Yep,
the idea of raising money can be very intimidating, one, and then two, bringing in a partner who isn't, especially a private equity one, where they're like, yeah, let's
yep,
just, they might be like, let's drop the organic thing. Like, why are
yeah.
we?
So we had a good friend in the industry, a gentleman named Aubrey, and he helped us navigate to find the right PE firm
Okay.
who shared our mission. And
Okay.
the guys out of Colorado were called Greenmont, and they really understood organic. They were big into supporting organic farming. And so when things would go sideways, they weren't looking for the exit door to get out. They were trying to figure out how to work through it with us. And so,
Perfect.
we were blessed to have the right partner there, and that was great.
Absolutely.
And so when we were going through all these green up and downs, and holy cow, nobody panicked, and they helped get us through. But by 2017, it had been 5 years, and they were ready to exit. They needed to find, for their own fund, they typically
Investors,
three
yeah.
to 3 to 5 years. And so we went to the market to find a replacement for them. They were a minority investor, and it became pretty obvious that the only way and the best way was people wanted to buy the whole company.
Yeah.
They didn't want to just buy a minority share. And so we thought long and hard about it, prayed about it, and said, you know what? I think it's the right time. I think,
Really?
yeah, we had some hurdles with greening. We were at this kind of plateau as a company that we just needed more help and expertise to get its more distribution nationwide. And so we decided to sell. It's not the easiest decision. Kind of, I've thought maybe this was a multi-generational business. We would hand it off to the next generation. But I also said at the beginning, there'll be the right time to get in and the right time to get out, and it will be clear. There will be a
Yes.
clear point of like, hey, you hit so much adversity and walls that you got to figure out which fork in the road you're going to, and it made sense for us to sell. And so it was
Yeah.
a great exit for my family. They, mom and dad. Mom retired.
Oh,
Uh,
fantastic.
Dad just went back to farming. My brother-in-law, he went back to being a full-time Delta pilot. My brother stayed on and became, the ag R&D consultant for us. My wife and I stayed on and ran the company. We sold it to Dean Foods. They were the largest dairy nationwide. They were publicly traded, $8 billion with a B,
Wow.
17,000 employees, 70 plus plants. And it really helped me see us expand nationwide. Like, okay, I can get into these plants. Milk is ubiquitous. It's in every crack. I can see it for the next 2 or 3 years, and then I'll go do something else. I'll go back into farming and
Yeah.
do what I love with the family and just be a fresh fruit grower. But lo and behold, they went bankrupt. 2 years in, they had a lot of problems. Dairy was declining pretty rapidly. They had a lot of debt on the books. They had all these plants, and they couldn't close them fast enough. Plant-based milks, soy, almond, oat, all those things were coming in and getting more shelf space from the milk. And so they couldn't pivot fast enough. And unfortunately, they went bankrupt. And I was sitting
Wow.
there at the beginning of the pandemic in, early 2020 going, wow, this thing's going to go up for auction. do I want to buy this company back? Like,
So
it's a
you can buy
pandemic.
your little subset back.
Yes, yes. So we could go in and carve out little Uncle Matt's and the $8 billion company. We were
I didn't mean it like that, but you
no,
know what
no,
I'm saying.
but it's very true. And it was like this little tiny company, that we were going to buy out of the big, monster thing with all the different assets. And so it took a while. I mean, I was about $350,000 in legal fees into the whole bankruptcy thing of trying to figure out how to buy it back and maneuver and raise money. And so if we would have lost the bid, I would have, taken a pretty good hit, and that wouldn't have been fun. But I went in and found some good industry friends who would come alongside me and invest back in the company. I didn't want to risk all of my chips on the table. And so,
So at this point, just to clarify for
yep,
people listening, is you basically were able to sell your business, take chips off the table, be kind
yeah,
of set for life,
yep,
and then you go back in and you're like, wait, are we about to play this game again? But that's
right.
when you brought some friends in because people don't understand that there's
Mhm.
when you're purchasing things, you can share the debt load in different ways and you can
Yeah,
raise the money and it can be very unique. So it doesn't always have to be a one person does it
that's
all.
right. Yeah, and we kind of knew what our risk level was that we wanted to go at it again. And granted, it's orange juice. It's a commodity, and it's not the easiest category. And there's not huge margins. You have to be a really lean operator.
Yeah.
And it was like the category that's was in decline. Orange juice continued to kind of slowly decline while we continued to increase. So we the judge said, hey, this is going to be not a typical auction. It's going to be one final bid, so put in your best and highest bid. So that was very difficult.
Yeah.
Like, wow, how much do we really think this, we're going to be bidding against other people? What's our max that we want to raise, and how much do my wife and I want to be diluted to still be interested? And so that was a lot of dynamics. And then if we lost the bid, my wife and I would be out the 350 grand of our legal time. And so we weren't really excited about that. But we, uh, we did all this work. We had all these several different attorneys on there. It was right at the beginning of the pandemic. We raised money in 30 days. Most people put a big deck together. They have all kinds of data and stuff. And we didn't have that. They just had to trust us. Like, hey, I think we're going to if we win the bid, we're going to get a good deal at bankruptcy on a company that already has, 3-4 times the sales of what we're going to buy it back for.
Oh,
Um,
perfect.
and we'll have a pretty good opportunity to grow from there. And we did. So remember at 4 in the morning, my wife wakes me up. We went, she was like, you're not going to stay up. You're not going to stay up. Cause at midnight, they started the bidding. And I was like, man, I'm not staying up for this. I'm tired. I'm going to bed. I prayed about it. If it's going to happen, it's God's will. It's God's will, and we'll be back owning the company. But I'm not going to sweat over it. So she living is like, wow, that's crazy. Okay. So I go to bed. I'm knocked out at 4 a.m. She's like waking me up, honey. I'm like, yeah. She's like, guess what? I'm like, huh? Like, is there an intruder in the house? It's kind of like out of it.
Yeah.
It's like, you got the company back. We got it back. And I was like, what? We won the bid? She's like, we won the bid. I was like, yeah. Yeah, so got up and
That's incredible.
ran around the house, high fived. Just kind of had a good feeling like this is gonna work. And so since then, we've more than doubled the business and have a lot of growth and strength in the category. And now we're doing our own manufacturing. We have our own bottling facility where before, for 24 years, we were using co-packers all over the U.S. and now we've
And
consolidated it all.
what's the major difference between for people who don't know about that between having your own manufacturing versus co-packers?
Yeah, so I mean, we had good relationships with our co-packers. We would, supply them the juice, and they would put it in the bottle for us, and then we would ship it out and market and sell it. So they were the manufacturer. They had all the, shiny steel. They had the labor that did all that, and just provided a service for us. And for the most part, they did a good service. But when we got into COVID, everybody had issues. And so we had to go from one co-packer to 3 co-packers to keep up with our volume. And so that became really burdensome on our company to ship stuff, 3 different locations. We were Midwest, Mid-Atlantic, and down in Florida that we had to supply every week with, the same materials. And it's just like, wow.
Just way too confusing.
It was inexpensive, but
Yeah.
we did it, and we did it really well. Our team did a fantastic job, and so it became very obvious, like, hey, we need to consolidate this. And then where are we going to do it? You know, we're a fourth generation Florida citrus family. We've always been right here. Well, it's not here. You know,
Yeah.
we did it in the middle of the country in Texas.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
Texas is our supplier. East coast of Mexico is our supplier. So now we ship it right there to Dallas, and we go east and west and split the country in half. And strategically, it's a really good move and advantage for us. And I fly out there at least once or twice a month, and
Go check it
have some
out and
have
see.
some fun at my version of Disney World, and really enjoy it. And our efficiencies are getting better, and everything about it is a lot of fun. And now we're, firmly set to expand and grow our business, but with a whole different business model than when I started in the very
Yeah.
beginning. And it's bittersweet, very bittersweet, because I'm a Florida citrus guy, and for the longest time, man, that was my that was my main selling point. But we had to change.
And how has that been for you? Because I know a lot of people face challenges when a change occurs, and it seems like selling the company, buying it back to with the citrus greening, like all these challenges. How have you been able to view change? And if someone's listening to this, how can they utilize change for a positive?
Uh, you know, I like a good challenge. Right?
It's a
If you
mindset. I completely
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah, I mean, it really is a mindset that, hey, we're going to overcome any obstacle, right?
Yes.
And you're always thinking strategic. You're thinking what if scenarios.
Yes.
So, I always tried to stay 2, 3 steps ahead of, hey,
Yeah.
what if this happens? And
Yeah.
as organic and being a fast growing company, we always had to really think strategically, like, hey, what if a hurricane wipes out a lot of our supply? What if
Yeah.
a co-packer goes down, or they don't like us anymore, they want to get in and compete against us or something? I was always trying to think of backup scenarios. So embrace those scenarios. Think about the what ifs. I do the old 6 Ps of prior proper planning prevents poor performance, and do
I like
that
that.
quite a bit, and do it throughout your business, of every little piece, right? That you're gonna plan for the best, and you're gonna plan for the worst, so you're ready when it happens, because it will happen. I guarantee you, stay in business long enough, you're gonna have the best of the highs, like, man, we're like nothing's stopping us. And then you're gonna have the low of the lows, like, I think they're coming to take the house. And this is not gonna be fun. Like, holy cow, I was just at top of the mountain like last month. Like,
Yeah.
how did I get to the damn bottom of the mountain? Like, ah.
So
Um,
how do you keep an even mindset? Because I feel like, I mean, that's the turbulence of entrepreneurship that's so challenging for all of us.
yeah. I mean, for me, I mean, as a Christian, I stay, faith-based, right? So I pray for wisdom and strength on a regular basis, and try and stay, mellow, and say, well, my treasures are in heaven. It's not here. I can't take any of it with me. I try and stay on my mission. Hey, this is all part of just, getting to the mission, and fulfilling what I love to do with the purpose in life. It's going to be trials and tribulations. It's just part of it. There's no business that's nothing but a hockey curve up, and no problems. So it
A-
doesn't matter what you do or where you go. But aside
Absolutely.
from my own faith, just finding things that you like to do outside, work-life
Oh,
balance,
interesting.
right? So
Cool.
work-life balance, you got to make sure, do your best when you're not working to not work.
Yes.
Whether it's exercise, you like to read, you like to go for a bike ride, you like to hang out with your friends, have hobbies that you can truly let go
Decompress.
and
Yeah.
decompress. And so I try to do it. I mean, it's you got to have a mindset to do it, because it will follow you
Well,
a
that
lot. And especially, you didn't have kids, you have kids, you have a wife, you need to really make sure you're making time for them, because then before you know it, life has passed you by. I never forget the Wendy's founder. They talked to his daughter, and said, "What do you remember the most about your dad? What an amazing guy! He had all these Wendy's. He created this company. What do you remember the most about him?" And her quote was that he was never there. I'm like, wow. Like, I don't want to be that guy. you know
yeah.
I'm about my kids and the next generation having a great impact. I literally want to live to be 100. That's one of my goals.
Hell yeah.
So I try to biohack my life, come up with great, exercise routines, food to nourish my body, health as well, because I want to impact the future generations. I want to tell them, the stories my granddad told me. And I started late in life with kids. I didn't get married till I was 36.
Oh wow.
So I got my work cut out for me at 53, but I like a challenge.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And when you think about it, when you really like put it all together, it's fascinating. Like
Mhm.
our life is so much more than just the job. And this is coming from someone who's ran a big business, sold the big
Mm.
business, bought the big business back. And he's
Right.
like, life is not about the business. The business is just a tool to facilitate. And I think something everyone's a little curious about is you mentioned that you ran this with some of your family members, a good amount of them.
Yeah.
How has that relationship been? Because I know that can be challenging. A lot of people say don't mix business and pleasure, like or family
Yeah.
and business, but like what did you really get from that?
So we were fortunate. We have a family that we all get along. Actually, I live right next door to my sister and brother-in-law. My brother lives across the lake from us, and my parents still live here too in the same small town. So we were a pretty close-knit family. And if there's one thing that can destroy any family, it's money, right?
Yes.
It's money and disagreements over money and how you handle money. And when you work in a business together, you're going to talk about money, and you're going to talk about who makes what and what kind of bonus and job descriptions. The best thing I can tell you is that we all had unique traits, so it was pretty easy to delineate. This is your job description. This is what you're good at. Really help the business there. So Dad and Ben were agronomists. My
Yeah.
sister-in-law, she had a marketing and advertising background, so she worked as a creative side that did a lot of the writing for packaging. My wife was also a graphic designer and a creative, so she really loved that and designed packaging and helped do writing and oversee marketing. My brother-in-law, he had a MBA. He was really good at finance, so that helped. My mom had a great background in running a nursing program, so she was caring and compassionate. So she was HR, right?
Yeah.
So we all had great natural gifts that lined up perfect for sharing the responsibility and sharing the roles as the company grew. And so that was very helpful. So if you do have individual traits like that, it makes it much easier to put a family together than if you're all fighting over the same oar in the boat. Then that could be a problem.
Absolutely. And then when you juggle the business dynamic and the family dynamic, how does that work? Like, do you sometimes have to go, I am Uncle Matt's Matt right now, not Matt McLean, your brother?
Yeah, yeah.
Or
I mean, that's a that's delicate, right? But I think everybody respected and understood that. I mean, somebody has to be in charge,
of
right?
course.
And so if if they're okay with the dynamic, that's the first step, right? Okay, who's going to be the leader? Who's the ultimate guy that's got to stand there and say, I'm charting the course. We can
Yes.
debate about, how to get there and do that, but here's the course we're charting, and I got to be the leader of the organization.
Yeah.
All of them are also leaders in their own right. So they led the ag team, they led the marketing team, they led HR. So they all had their chance to be leader. But at the end of the day, there has to be one person that at least is, hey, I'm responsible for it all, and I have to be making sure everybody's doing their jobs. So we serve the customer. I mean, we're here to serve the customer, and when you
Uh,
take it that way, it helps everybody realizing like, hey, you're not serving me, we're
yeah.
serving the customer. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you what I think the customer is going to need and the customer demands. And if we don't do that, the competition will. So, that kind of helps deflect it from I'm telling you what to do as your brother or your, son. It's no, the customer's telling us what to do. I'm just here to try to steer the ship.
Yeah, and that's what a lot of people have said in regard to really running a business, that it's not I'm not the boss of anyone. All my employees are the boss, all the customers are the boss.
Yeah.
It's like it's funny because a lot of people get into entrepreneurship to not have a boss, and then you start to realize you're like, I have a million bosses.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh-huh. You never get away from being told by somebody what to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I
Well,
mean, you
Matt,
can, but then you're not listening to your customer, and you probably won't be in business long.
absolutely. Absolutely. So, Matt, for you, where can people learn about Uncle Matt's? Where can they find Uncle Matt's? Where is all this?
Yeah, the good news is we're in 15,000 plus stores nationwide,
Oh,
which
wow.
is great. So, I mean, you can find us in Whole Foods, Kroger, Sprouts, Publix, Walmart, a bunch of different regional chains, great natural food stores where we started out. So if you got a good local food co-op, go there, support the little guy. But go to unclemats.com. We have a store locator. Click on that tab, put in your zip code, and it'll tell you exactly what stores in your area where you can find which items. We sell a bunch of different items, not just orange juice, but lemonades and punches. And now we got into real brewed organic tea, which is kind of fun. And if you can't find the item you want, we will actually ship it to you. So we also have an e-com aspect. We will ship it direct to your door. It won't be as cheap as what you have if you can find it locally because we have to put it in a refrigerated box and send it to you overnight. But we will gladly deliver anywhere in the continental U.S. But you can also find us in Hawaii, Alaska,
Oh, wow.
uh, Puerto Rico. Yeah, we're in other spots.
That's incredible. Thank you so
Yeah,
much, Matt. This has been amazing.
yeah, I appreciate it, Jordan. Anytime.